The second questioner posed that he's from Bangladesh. He wants to give his son the highest education in Islam. He wants me to name some Islamic educational institutions outside Bangladesh and within Bangladesh where he can educate his child to the best Islamic educational levels. The brother didn't pose, he didn't tell me what was the age of his child, whether he's talking about school, whether he's talking about college, about university. I'll try and cover some of it. As far as the education system in Bangladesh is concerned, I have not been to Bangladesh, I have not done research, so I'm not the right person to tell you which are the best schools or universities in Bangladesh. As far as the schooling is concerned, I can advise you that see to it that you find a good Islamic education school, preferably if it's an Islamic international school, it will be the best. See which is the best available in your country and try and enroll. See to it that the school is based on lines of Quran and Sunnah. As far as I'm concerned, you may be aware that I had started a school in the year 2000, in the year 2001. That's about 20 years back. The Islamic International School in Mumbai, also Islamic International School in Chennai. And alhamdulillah, the main purpose of that school was education for both the worlds. Educate your children for this world as well as the akhirah. But naturally, more stress was paid on the akhirah. And we wanted to see to it that when the child passes the 12th standard A level, he has the basic knowledge that is required for a Muslim for the worldly affairs. And I felt that IGCSE, the Cambridge board, once you pass A level equivalent to 12th standard or the HSC, higher secondary school, a person gets fairly good knowledge of the worldly subjects. So if a person passes A levels of the Cambridge or the IGCSE or the HSC or the 12th standard as we call, he fairly gets a good knowledge of the various subjects that are required for the worldly knowledge. If it's Islamic international school which is attached to a syllabus of the Cambridge, it's very good, or some international syllabus which gives a good education, simultaneously educating a child with the basics of Islam, then about Quran, Hadith, Sharia, Fiqh, like what we had in our school, Islamic International School. And alhamdulillah, it was a very successful school, mashallah. We had the main medium of instruction was English and Arabic. So if we can find a school whose main language of instruction, two languages I believe are most important. One is Arabic, the language of the Quran and the Sahih Hadith. And second is the English language, which is an international language, which is required for a person to dawah. And third, maybe the local language. If you are in Bangladesh, can be Bengali. If you are in India, can be Hindi, depending which state you're coming from. But the two main languages are Arabic and English. And our education was mainly in these two languages. And we saw to it that the selected children, about more than 1/3, who we felt can do hifz, they finish hifz by the time they reach standard 5. And from 5th to 10th, they did muraja, so that they become a hafiz, which, so that the person can become a hafiz who not only memorize the Quran, but can repeat it very easily without any revision. Then Arabic, we wanted to make it strong besides English, so that both these languages become as good as their mother tongue. And we achieved success to a great level by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So much so that, mashallah, that the students that graduated from our school, they could speak fluent Arabic, they knew the basics of the Sharia, and it was a very successful model until just 5 years back, as you may be aware, that the new government, the BJP government, was not very happy with the successful activity we were doing in terms of dawah, in terms of schools, and because of that we had to shut that school. We had one school in Bombay, we had one school in Chennai. I do not know of any other school in India or anywhere else in the world that I visited. I visited hundreds of Islamic schools. In India, I did not come across any school that was even 5% close to the level of IS. And internationally, I did not know of any school which even came 10% close to what Islamic International School was, in terms of tarbiyah, in terms of having a dual language, in terms of giving the knowledge of Islam and the worldly education together. So my advice to you would be, the brother asked the question from India, that try and find the best available Indian school if you are studying in a school. and in Bangladesh the best available school that you have, or if you know of any school abroad where you want to send your son, that's an option. After you finish the A levels from an Islamic international school, my advice would be that if you want to dedicate and make your child as a da'i, or make your child in the field of Islamic knowledge, and you ask me for the names of good Islamic institutions. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, I'm aware that there are a few Islamic institutions, the Islamic University, which is there in Chittagong. It's there in some other parts of Bangladesh, but I'm not too much aware. I did meet the principals or the deans of this institute when I traveled to Makkah, but I'm not aware of the quality. But as a general rule, what we realize that when a Muslim studies in the institution abroad, and one of the best Islamic institute as far as studying the knowledge of Islam is concerned, according to me, is Imam Muhammad bin Saud Islamic University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's one of the best. The other good institutes are the Islamic University of Medina in Saudi Arabia, as well as Qura. And there are various other Islamic universities and general universities in Saudi Arabia, many. But these three are the most prominent ones. If you study in an Islamic university where the instruction, the language of instruction is Lugha Fusha, it's the best. You have other Islamic institutes in other parts of the world. You have in Yemen, you have in Mauritania, etc. You also have good Islamic institutes in Qatar. You have Hamad bin Khalifa University, you have the Qatar University, you have in Dubai, you have in Sharjah, the Sharjah Islamic University, and in the Gulf countries. But the one that I named, the first three, I believe one of the best. So if you can go to an Arab country and see to it that the institute you join is based on Quran and Sunnah, that would be the best. If you are not able to get, and you can try, you can apply, and most of these institutes, they have scholarship, but it's not easy getting in. You have to work hard, you have to apply, you have to keep on applying many times, you have to take references, and there are chances that you can get, but you have to work hard, not just apply once. So there are more than 30, 40 Islamic universities you can apply in the Arab countries. Apply to all, as many as you can. Go on the net, Google, these ones that are named are the better ones. The next option can be, if you want to study in a non-Arab country, the International Islamic University of Malaysia, that's in Kuala Lumpur in Gompark. It's a very good option. After the Arab countries that you have, if you want to go to non-Arab countries, a good Islamic university will be the IIUM, International Islamic University of Malaysia. It's a good option, but natural. Here we have a dual medium of instruction in this university. It is English and Arabic. So besides, even if you want to do the worldly subjects, whether it be law, whether it be science, whether it be computer, it is compulsory in this university that you should learn at least the basics of Arabic, not a very high level. And if you want to do your graduation or a post-graduation in the IIUM, in the faculty of revealed knowledge, then you have two options, either in Arabic or in English. And the Arabic, you cannot compare with the Arabic of Jamiat al-Imam in Riyadh or of Medina University, but yet it is, alhamdulillah, compared to the non-Arab country, it is good. But compared to the Arab countries, it will not be that level. Yes, they have teachers from all over the world. They have teachers from the Arab world, and they've selected the best of teachers from different parts of the world. So it's a good option. And if you cannot get scholarship in the Gulf countries or the Arab countries, the fees in IIUM Malaysia is reasonable. It's quite cheap, because if you have to pay the fees in the Gulf countries, it's very expensive, multiple times more expensive. So comparative, the fees of IIUM is cheap. So this is the next option that you have. I'm not too much favor of studying Islamic graduation and post-graduation in the Indian subcontinent. That can be the last option. But naturally in the Indian subcontinent, I would feel that the Islamic universities in Pakistan is better. For example, the Islamic University of Islamabad. After IIUM, I would say that's also a good university. But in India, doing from the Indian universities, the level will not be as good. That can be the last option, but I would not advise you to go to the Bombay University or the normal education of the government. Yes, for example, Arabic in Lucknow in Nadwa is good, mashallah, very good, as compared to the other madrasas. But generally, the level of Islamic education in Arabic, etc., in the Gulf country is the best. And I can tell this why, as you may be aware, that Alhamdulillah, the Islamic Research Foundation and the associated organization, our full umbrella, we had more than 500 employees, 500 full-time paid employees. And amongst these 500 full-time paid employees, there were approximately about 70 of these employees. They were graduates, postgraduates, and PhDs from Islamic universities, out of which about 40 to 45 were from the Indian universities, and about 25 were from the foreign universities. And we had from different Islamic institutions. I don't want to name them, but we had from variety from all over India. We had 40, so maybe from at least 10, 15 top Islamic universities. So we knew what the level was there. And plus, we had 25 from the foreign university. This is at one given time. But over the span of 10, 15 years, some staff stays for 2 years, some for 3, some for 4, some for 5. So all put together, we had more than hundreds that we interacted with. Maybe more than 50 from foreign universities and more than 100 from the Indian universities. I would say, and the majority we had, maybe from the foreign universities, maybe more than 75% were from the Islamic University of Medina. Then we had from Jamiat al-Imam, we had from Mulqara, we had from Al-Azhar, and various foreign universities. But naturally, the level from the Saudi universities was the best in terms of Lugha Fasa, and more Indians could easily get admission into the Islamic University of Medina. Therefore, we had more from there. The level was much higher as compared to the graduates of the Islamic universities in India. That's the reason the school that we had, the teachers that we had, where it comes to teaching Arabic, all of them were from foreign universities, except for one from Nadwa. He was very good. But all the Arabic language were taught by the graduates and postgraduates and PhDs from the foreign universities, mainly from Saudi Arabia. And whereas the other part were Hifz, Tilawat, Tajweed, and the other parts were taken from the graduates and the postgraduates from the Indian universities. But let me tell you one thing, that as far as education is concerned, yes, if you want to see to it that you become a Dai, my advice would be that see to it that you put yourself in put your child into a good Islamic university. But let me tell you, as far as practical dawah is concerned, number one most important is help of Allah. And your striving is important. What you gain knowledge in the university is good for your basics. But attending the durus, the lectures, and the discourses of the scholars is very important. That's the reason when a person goes to study in Medina or in Riyadh or in Makkah, he has an opportunity, besides learning in the Islamic University. If he is studying in the Islamic University of Medina, he can go to the Masjid al-Nabawi and hear the durus, or there are many halaqas that take place in Medina of different top scholars. They can attend that. If he's in Makkah, he can go to the Haram or attend other scholars. Or if he's in Riyadh, the Riyadh has a better option because the Kubar ulama are there, the top ulama of Saudi Arabia are there. So very well he can attend the lectures, the sessions, and each scholar has, some have 5, some have 10, some have 15 sessions in a week, and there are plenty of them. So besides studying in the university is good. You get a degree, you get a qualification, it will be good for getting a job, but for practical dawah, studying under the scholars one-to-one or attending the durs is more important than what you study in the university. What you study in the university, you read, you pass the examination, that's it. Most of it is forgotten unless you revise it. So my advice would be similarly, what you study in colleges, what you learnt in science or in arts or in commerce, that's the basic. Unless you do not implement it after you pass and do your internship, you will not excel in that field. So same thing with Islamic studies. So most important is that if you do from a good Islamic institution, at least your bachelor, that is very important. And then get involved into practical, join a dawah organization which is practically involved in the field of dawah or talking to non-Muslims or a research department. Otherwise, many of the Indians, once they pass, then they do a job of translation from Arabic to Urdu or Arabic to English. I mean, that's not the reason why you went to an Islamic university. You get there, you get a good job, you get good salary. So unfortunately, when the Indian people from the Indian subcontinent, whether it be India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they go to these institutions in the Gulf country because it's free, then they get a kafala, they get every month paid, which is good for them. When they come back, few are involved in the field of dawah, unfortunately. If your main purpose is to make your child a da'i or a Islamic person of good Islamic knowledge or in the field of Islamic teaching, etc., see to it that after he passes graduation, he gets involved practically with some dawah organization or with some scholars. Then, of course, you can go ahead, you can do your master's, you can do your PhD, but the most important is your bachelor's. Doing your bachelor's from a good, reputed institution is the most important. Because when you're doing your bachelor's, and I'm talking about bachelor's on-site, I'm not talking about bachelor's online. Online on the internet, you have got various universities. Please, the level of a good, reputed on-site university like Islamic University of Medina or Jamiatul Imam from Riyadh, you cannot compare with any online degree, please. Yes, if a student is excellent and he has the knack, he has the passion, he can benefit from these online universities. I'm not saying don't join them, but you cannot compare the level. Please don't deceive yourself. Attending physically, meeting the scholars one-to-one is something different. The online university, the level of the scholars that teach on the online university generally, you cannot compare with the on-site university. The teachers that teach in the Medina, they are of the scholarly level. On the online universities, I hardly know. Maybe for a short time, some scholars may be coming. But most of the one that I know, you cannot compare the level at all. One-to-one is something different. That may be the last resort if you don't have anything to do and you're at home and you're stuck, then you can join an online university. The levels are different. In the online university, among the one that I know, it is the IOU, the Islamic Online University. The name has changed to International Online University. That was run by Dr. Bilal Phillips, the one that's available. There are other ones out there, that the KIU, Knowledge Islamic University, that by Sheikh Saad Nasr al-Shetri. There are many, but the level that you get in the on-site universities like Islamic University of Medina, Jamiatul Imam, Qura is something different. So after you pass your bachelor's, I would advise you to join a dawah organization or get involved in the scholars and simultaneously do masters. Now when you're doing masters, half of the time is the personal research and 50% or less than 50% is actually studying on-site, or maybe 1/3. So even giving less than half your time, you can complete your masters. Some universities take 2.5 years, some 3, some take 4. So while you are involved in practical dawah, you can do your masters, and if time permits you, you can even continue your PhD, depending in which subject you are doing a PhD, depending what your liking is. But natural, I prefer that if you are in the field of dawah, I would prefer Sharia, doing bachelor's in Sharia and master's in PhD. The next would be tafsir of the Quran. If someone has a liking for the Quran, then okay, tafsir of Quran is good. Then the hadith is there. So these are the few which are on the better knowledge for doing dawah. One is the Sharia, next would be tafsir of the Quran, third would be hadith. These are, there are other things, usul al-deen, then there is dawah. So when they talk about dawah, most of these bachelors, they're talking about dawah to Muslims, not dawah to non-Muslims. There are some courses like comparative religion in IIUM. There are comparative religion courses even in the Saudi universities, but that level is different. Because I've met some of the students or some of the people who have passed their PhD in comparative religion. But when you actually talk to them about the practical dawah to be done to a non-Muslim, it is very shallow. Unless the person has practical knowledge of joining a dawah organization. That's the reason for practical dawah, you have to get involved with people who are scholars, who are dais, who are experienced, or join an Islamic organization. That will really improve your skills, not just doing a graduation. So my advice would be, after you pass the graduation, see to it they're involved, and simultaneously do your masters. If you want high level, do PhD. You can do one PhD, you can do two PhD, as long as the person is young and can take it. And so that, but these degrees are only good for the world, may not be useful for the akhirah unless you implement it. You may get a good job, you may get a good job of a professor or a good post, or if you do Islamic finance, you get an Islamic bank. But practically, if you want to utilize it, it is a practical knowledge sitting with people who are involved in the field, whether they experience du'ats or with experience, they're scholars. This is very important. So this last part, practically, that is the reason everyone that I know that we had at any given time 60, 70 graduates, postgraduates and PhDs. But were they good guys? I'm sorry to say. We had other people in organization who were engineers, who were just bachelors in science, and they were multiple times better than people who were graduates from the Islamic University of Medina. Why? Because they may not be having that passion until they came and did our course of Dawah training program. So we had a course only for the Medina graduates, and once they did that course, then they were multiple times more effective. So graduating from a good university is one thing, but putting into practice is another thing. That is the reason that our du'ats in the research department of Islamic Research Foundation, who were normal graduates, they were paid double than what we used to pay a person who is a bachelor from the Islamic University of Medina. He may have the knowledge of deen, but when you ask him a question, he may not be able to reply on the comparative religion. He may be able to reply something on fiqh, that's it. So if you want a practical person involved in the field of dawah, unless, yes, the best would be graduate from a good university like Islamic University of Medina or Qura or Jamiat al-Imam and get involved in an Islamic organization, which is practically in the field of dawah. Get attached to a person who's experienced dai or a scholar, and then utilize your knowledge, what you had learned in the university, and then learn the techniques, then it would be superb. Just getting a degree is not sufficient for you to be a dai. Yes, you get the qualification, you can be a teacher, that's it. But practically moving hearts, practically, therefore everyone who passes from the Islamic University of Medina is not a good speaker. Everyone are a dai. The percentage that are actually dais are very small. That is the reason if your aim is to be a dai, get the knowledge from this university and get attached to an Islamic organization, get attached to a scholar, get attached to a dai who's experienced, and implement what you have learned. That would be the best. Hope this answers in short, because this question was asked many times and I kept on postponing because I know it would take time. So this was in short how you can see to it that you make your child, if your aim is to make him a dai or Islamic personality. This was in brief. Hope that answers the question.